Well, yeah, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Sorry about the first session that this is live, so something went wrong first time. So here we are again, second time lucky, hopefully. So this is about, I'm just going to switch this on so I can see this. So this is about expanding your authentic power. That's what I want to talk to you about today. And I'm really excited about this this morning. But just to begin with, have you ever noticed that in life, doing can really only get you so far, right? And have you ever felt that the hidden pull, that kind of hidden pull of your authentic self, whispering quietly in those quietest moments, that there could be a whole lot more to living life, right? And well, that's why I want to talk to you today, and why we need to expand our authentic power and access our superpowers. That's where I'm heading today. So a little bit about me. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Andrew Jenkins. For the last 18 years, I've been operating a company called PDX Consulting. I work with leaders, I build teams, and I inspire organisations. I'm kind of known as the high performance guy, I guess. And 2017, I wrote this book called Developing High Performance Teams. It's a very small guide, but it's very useful. It hooks to my website for lots of information. This isn't a book plug, but it's just to show you there's some background to this. And also in 2014, I created this book. It was published as I said, 2014. You Are More Than You Think: The Return to Your Authentic Self. It's a big whopping book, where I spent a good while talking about how to access our authentic self. So that's where I'm coming from. I also am the co-founder of Inspired CEOs, and that's a community of CEOs. That's kind of what it says. We inspire CEOs, and we meet every Thursday and Friday at 8 o'clock in the mornings UK time. And that's really exciting that we're building community together. And recently I set this new channel up called Leaders Live, and that's what you're looking at right now. And that's about building better business in this whole new era to achieve more success, and giving you the kind of tools and tips and the inspiration to do just that. So we're also live on Facebook and YouTube, and this will be replayed onto YouTube as well as on LinkedIn. So please find us. I'll put some links at the end of this. When I post this onto LinkedIn, there'll be some links you can follow as well. So let me just talk a little bit about what I'm sharing today. So what I'm going to share with you today, it's kind of still an emerging idea, folks. I haven't figured it all out yet. It's kind of forming, it's kind of emerging. It's not all there. So please bear with me. But I would like your help, actually, to kind of help me to figure some of this stuff out I'm going to talk to you about today, particularly in the latter bit, the third stepping stone, which we're going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about three stepping stones today. And I'm going to link these stepping stones together. So one builds progressively on the other, if you like, the previous steps. There's a bit of a hop, a skip, and a jump, if you like. And these three stepping stones, they're kind of concepts, they're ideas, they're principles, but they all kind of link nicely together. So just to set this up and to get you thinking, really, I want to ask you to ask yourself, if you like, do you ever feel trapped in the world of work, perhaps, and at the same time you might feel that calling to take a bit of a risk, perhaps, to adventure more, to even play more, perhaps, dare to play a little bit? And I did a post recently about playing more at work last week, and perhaps do you want to find more joy and freedom in your work and your life? And did you know that we all of us, every one of us on this planet, we all have access to an amazing amount of superpowers that they're really ready built in us. And all we need to do is to find them, to grab them as we develop through life. They become emergent. We can hook onto these things. So I want to talk about that today. And I'd like to set the scene by starting with a big picture and drill down, really. So as a first step, I'd like to talk. I'd like to talk about change, really. Let me just bring this slide up here. Okay, here we go. So this slide is about riding the waves of change. I'm going to begin here. So more than ever, folks, more than ever, we need to develop ourselves beyond functional human beings, because we live in a rapidly changing world, and you've got to be living under a rock if you haven't realised that by now. And this hasn't just been going on through the pandemic. I'm not talking about post-pandemic world necessarily here, although that has a bearing here. This has been going on for decades. We've been living through a juxtaposition between two change curves, haven't we? And that in itself produces lots of FUD, fear, uncertainty and doubt. And, it's going to take time to kind of, and, with the lockdown we've had 14 or 15 months of lockdown, and that's created a whole lot of funk too, hasn't it? And so really these two change curves, we've got this first change curve here, which is kind of like the old 20th century economy, which has kind of waxed and now is waning, if you like. That old economy is falling away, and all the rules associated to that are kind of coming into question. So it's like bye-bye old world, say hello to the new change economy, the new tech economy. And this is the second curve which is rising through here, this whole, this digital everything that we're living in, this mobile digital everything, where it just feels like tech is continually on. Every year we get new and more radical change. It feels like tech is on steroids right now, isn't it? So this is the rising new economy, and folks, we're stuck in the middle of these two change curves. We have been for a while, actually, and it feels like there's a lot of disruption, doesn't there? There's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of uncertainty. This whole FUD thing, we feel the funk of being here. And as human beings, we're just kind of grasping this new era and this new dawn. And to really grasp hold of it as human beings, we have to expand our consciousness, I believe, which is where I'm kind of heading in a moment. But just before I want to do that, I just want to. Do you remember the film The Matrix? If you've watched this film, fantastic. If you haven't watched it, go and see it. It's a brilliant film. I highly recommend it. It's kind of about human change on lots and lots of different levels. I really love this film. And in this film, there's this concept that Morpheus talks to Neo about, the two heroes of the film. Excuse me a moment. And talks about red pill and blue pill. I'm sure you might have heard of this concept that, we take the blue pill, and Morpheus says the story ends. You wake up in your bed every day. You believe whatever you want to believe. But you take the red pill, folks. You take the red pill. Oh, hello, Grace. How you doing? I'm glad that you've caught me on live. Thanks very much. That's brilliant. Great to see you. Hope you enjoy this. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, Grace. You stay in Wonderland and you discover how deep the rabbit hole goes. I love that. And remember, says Morpheus, all I'm offering you is the truth, nothing more. I love that scene. And my observation is that, without development, without purposeful, mature, facilitating development as leaders and teams, in the working world, without ongoing learning as people and as leaders, without that kind of learning, we stay in blue pill mode, because we're all by default in blue pill mode. And to learn how to get to the red pill mode, if you like, this is about purposeful development. We have to think more for ourselves, and we have to develop ourselves, and that's a kind of principle of the red pill. So that brings me on to the second concept about the kind of the comfort zone, the panic zone, the inspiration zone, and the superpower zone. I'll come on to that right now. So let me just change the slides here. So I want to talk about the comfort zone and the fear zone first of all. And this is very much blue pill land. Okay, this is where our default behaviours lie, that without any development we tend to stay more in our comfort zone here. And this is where all the FUD exists, the kind of the fear, uncertainty and doubt sit here, where all the funk is. And And because we're in between these two change curves, it feels like, we can be stuck in survival mode, particularly after 14 months of being in this pandemic, right? And it feels like in this 14 months, perhaps for some of you, that nothing has changed, that we've become maybe quite risk averse, particularly if we're sitting in between these two change curves as well. And the need for safety and control is kind of one of those instinctive things that we kind of, as human beings, we kind of automatically, instinctively, latch onto, if you like. And because of the pandemic, particularly, I suppose, this whole new normal world that we're emerging into, we're still trying to work all that out, particularly, with all the rapid change in technology and stuff, is that sometimes we can kind of negative, pessimistic, defensive view. Our fear circuits and our downstairs part of our brain tend to be in residence, where we're kind of worried about the competition, we're affected by events around us, and that kind of keeps us back in the comfort zone, because the stretch zone kind of, it's a fear factor. So we kind of want to go back to comfort, where we feel that comfort, don't we? But there's another way out of this, and that is that we can develop ourselves past the fear zone into, what I put here as the inspiration zone, the orange zone here. And let me just move into that right now. So I'll just move myself over a little bit. So here in this zone, this is about when we develop our soft skills, when we develop our emotional intelligence and our resilience, and we work on our behaviours and we develop ourselves further, we can get out of the funk of the kind of comfort zone and the fear zone that holds us back. Where we can start to aspire and look towards growth and change. And I think this new technological change curve that we're riding right now, this new wave of change, it's got huge amounts of opportunity. Yes, we can fear it, but we can also be excited by it, because it's got huge amounts of new opportunities of collaborating, of building trust, of harnessing conflict rather than being afraid of it. These are kind of some of the things that if we start to develop as human beings, we can become inspired. And that gives us more bandwidth, if you like, to overcome the funk of the elastic band effect of our fear zone and comfort zone. We can stretch beyond that. This is the stretch zone, if you like, the inspiration zone. And at the same time, we can improve our businesses. The more we develop as human beings, the more we develop together, particularly in high performance teams and working together, we can adapt to setbacks. We can envision a fantastic future. We can become more resilient and take more risks. So that's the kind of inspiration zone. And when we come here, we start to swallow the red pill, right? This is red pill thinking now. And when we start to develop ourselves here, and this isn't instant, it takes time to do these things, folks. But when we do start to do this, it kind of has a multiplying effect, folks, which brings us into this superpower zone here, where the more we develop ourselves, the more we can find that breakthrough for ourselves, and in our teams. We can seek new purposes, we can reinvent our work identity, and particularly if we're collaborating and working more as teams, which I believe we're going to have to in this new rapidly changing world, in this new normal world. I believe that future success is a team success, which is where this superpower zone really comes in. Having the courage to face the unknown, take part in this big game. It's just play. There's massive amounts of opportunity to be had here, where we can sustain our earnings through value, and we can hook on to joy and freedom and love in our lives. And this is where game-changing business happens. When we access our superpower zones, when we access that, for ourselves, we end up with a game changer, folks. It's game changing times, this. So that's what I really encourage you about here. I'm just going to move my microphone slightly. So, this is again red pill thinking, right? So that kind of sets the scene, if you like. Now what I want to do is I want to move on to the third aspect, and this kind of builds over a number of slides here. So So I just want to move on to this now then. Where am I? So let's just bring this one up. So I want to take us back for a moment into our growing up, and healthy growing up has a certain kind of cycle to it which follows this triangle. So when we're very young, we learn, because we're completely dependent on our parents when we're very young, because we haven't got any resources at all. We learn what it's like to be dependent on somebody else, where we rely totally on somebody else's love and care. Right? So we learn, our consciousness learns, the whole thing about depending on other people, and the kind of what it means to be dependent on somebody, what it means to rely on somebody else, or to trust somebody else. We learn those kind of things in our early stage of life. And then in our teenage years, that kind of moves quite rapidly into conflict, doesn't it? If you remember those times as teenagers, that we end up in this conflict period. And, we have to get over these things, which I'll come on to in a moment. But, that whole period of teenage years is kind of filled full of conflicting ideas, contrary ideas, conflict, if you like. And then as we approach into our late teens, we may end up going to university or college. We move away from our parents a little bit, particularly if we're at university and we go into a different town to study, etc. We learn the art of independence, don't we? Standing on our own 2 feet. And if you like, this first part of this triangle creates the fully functional adult. We don't need any more to be able to, chew gum, to talk, to think, to work, to do all the things that we can do all at the same time, right? So the left-hand part of this triangle is all about expanding our ability to be functional human beings. But and we can stay there if we like. And yet there is more to our lives than this, that we can literally turn a corner from independence to interdependence, where we realise in our 20s, say, that actually our parents weren't that bad after all. And that we learn a new relationship with our parents, don't we? Where, particularly if we've got a partner, we may end up with children, that actually our parents become grandparents, they sit for us, do all sorts of things. So we learn that actually our parents weren't bad after all. When we stood in our independent zone, we thought, well, they just don't understand us, as young people. They never went through what we went through, right? And yet, in our 20s, we realised that actually our parents aren't that bad after all. And this grows further still, that we can go beyond interdependence to our full potentiality. And this is kind of like almost like a spiritual journey here. I'm not necessarily, but I think it is more than just functional stuff. That when we access our potentiality, this is about the inspiration zone and the superpower zone that I talked about earlier. When we reach into our full selves. And so this right-hand part of the triangle is very different from the left-hand part of the triangle. It doesn't mean that we forgo everything on the left. We just bring it all with us, right? So everything we've learned becoming a fully functional adult, we just take with us. And if we're lucky, we transpose that onto the other side of our lives. But the right-hand part of this triangle, if you like, it needs purposeful development. We need to develop this in our lives, because this transposes so neatly into the business world too. So that's kind of, what I've just talked about is growing up. But actually the same thing applies in our business relationships when we're building successful businesses. Because sometimes people get stuck in dependence. Sometimes we get stuck as adults in teams at work in conflict. Sometimes we get stuck in counterdependence, where we feel that everybody else is wrong and I'm right? And people leave organisations for that kind of stuff because they don't like what they see or whatever. If we stand too long in counterdependence, the tip of this triangle here, then we can get a distorted view of the world. But it's also a good thing as well. And sometimes we can get stuck in our potentiality because it becomes idealism, if you like, and we're trying to push too hard to get idealism. So as human beings in the working environment, we can get stuck at any one of these stages. Okay. And quite often people get stuck on the left-hand side of this triangle, where they can't get away from codependence. Those are insidious relationships at work where, say there's a colleague that one of us might be involved with or whatever, that he or she knows something about you, you know something about them, and so you've both got something about on each other, and you hold each other to account on a codependent relationship. It's not healthy. Neither is if we can't handle conflict or we have too much conflict. and we're not mature enough with conflict, then we can get stuck here. And likewise, as I've just said, we can stand in Mexican standoff too often, and we think we're right and everybody else is wrong. So, whilst we are fully functional as adults on this left-hand side, it can hold us back too, particularly in the organisations of the future, and coming back to the change curves of what I talked about earlier. In this second change curve, my belief is that we need better business smarts. We need to develop our soft skills and our emotional intelligence and work as high-performing teams. And so we need to get beyond independence, codependence, conflict and counterdependence, and move to the right-hand side of this triangle, where we learn interdependency with our colleagues, and we each grow into our own potentiality so we can access our superpowers. Because when we access our superpowers, that creates the high performance team where everyone's good at what they do. Not everybody has to do everything, right? We get good at what we do. So that's kind of the kind of relationship triangle, and how that operates both in our family lives, but also transposes so neatly into the business world. And what I want to do is I want to push this a bit further now. So I want to play with this a little bit, where I'm going to next. I'll just move the slide over. I want to play with this a little bit. This is where I might need some of your help, actually, because I'm still kind of figuring this out. There's something here, though. There's something here that I'm hooking onto. And there's some fundamental truth in this, particularly on this right-hand side of this triangle. I'm still trying to grasp this, but as I said, I need your help in uncovering this and making sense of this. But I'm hoping that you'll kind of get this. So I'm close to revealing a really interesting, profound truth here, folks. So let me test this with you now and see if I can land this. Just imagine that there's a person called Fred or Jenny, and it's their obituary. They've died. And this is what people are saying to them at the funeral. They might say something like this. Let's say if they were on the right hand side of this triangle, they might say, you know what, Fred, Jenny, they were larger than life. Nothing could hold them back. And so what does this mean? When we say that about somebody, well, it probably means that they've embraced something, some sort of truth, folks, some sort of deeper level, people, that it means they've connected with something that inspires them, and other people are inspired because of what they've connected to. Now, this is what I call the authentic power, okay? It's more than just I or me. It's the power of I to the power of we. I love that expression, where it's not just me anymore. It's I to the power of we working together. And when we come to our authenticity, on this right-hand side, we start to reach that potentiality, those superpowers I talked about earlier. And this is kind of the law of being, this expansiveness, this boundlessness that's there. And we can all reach it, right? But we need help to develop this. Or we can stay on the left-hand side, and this is what I've called the acquired me here. This is the law of doing. But my belief, folks, is that this stuff only gets you so far. We can't move into the 21st century of this rapidly changing world that we're living on, where digital everything is on steroids and will continue to. And included in that is the whole world of artificial intelligence and the way that's going to reshape the job market and stuff. So we could all go back to fear on this, right? But I believe this is massive opportunity here, if only we can embrace the right-hand side rather than the left-hand side of this journey. And as I said, I'm still honing this. I'm still trying to find the deep truth in this model. It's not truly forming for me right yet, but it's coming. And I'd love your observations too. And please help me with this. But if you want to hook to this, it's a bit like the hero's journey. Joe Campbell wrote The Hero's Journey, a beautiful book about uncovering our authentic power. And so this brings me on to a final slide here, which just elaborates this further. If we stay, this whole thing about the authentic me, the I to the power of we, the right-hand side of this triangle, it's so profound, so powerful. And yet the elastic band effect of the left-hand side can hold us back. On the left-hand side, yeah, thanks, Ahmed. Great, he says. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm loving the comments that I'm seeing here. Thank you. This is, on the left-hand side, reality is driven much more by FUD, fear, uncertainty and doubt. Fear, safety and protection are the key constructs here. Where reactive responses are more prevalent, if you like. Problems and separation are the fundamental paradigm in play. And that's a shame because, when we've got separation and different views and things, it keeps us stuck, right? We become regressive and we retreat into our cultures or, into our basic downstairs part of our brains, where control and attachment seem to be the thing that we prize here, that competency and what we do is more prized than who we are. Now, as I said, you can be a fully functional human being on the acquired me side, on the left-hand side of this triangle. But really, all we get here, folks, is a functional life, where 1 and 1 equals 2. It's just a straight mathematical formula. And yet, on the right-hand side, there's a whole heap of more interesting things that happen here. This is where, we can come to a reality that's driven by love, by joy, by freedom. And why shouldn't we find those things in our work, folks? Why shouldn't work be a joy? Why shouldn't it be a freedom? Why shouldn't it be something that we can express ourselves wholeheartedly in the person we're meant to be? And this is where, our growth happens through letting go of control. And it becomes generative, and it's got some sort of creativeness and some sort of creative freedom that hooks onto our creative senses here, that accesses our superpowers. But it needs some mental discipline to get there. And it's also about togetherness. We don't do this on our own, folks. We do it with others around us. And when we do that, it expands our human capability beyond just functional human beings. And this is the call to an unknown future. There's some scary elements to this because this is the unknown. We're unfolding the unknown on this right-hand part of the triangle. And yet, my belief is that's where the most successful organisations on the planet will start to come from. Where magic truly, truly happens. And I believe it's possible. This isn't just an idealistic thing. This is the call that I believe that we're all going to have to call through, because in this new, rapidly changing world, we're going to have to get there through development, my belief is. So I'd love to know what comes up for you guys. I've got some comments here, and I don't know how quick they come onto the screen as I'm coming along, because there's a bit of a delay in this. But what comes up for you about this doing and being journey, folks? What are your observations here? I'd love to hear what your comments are about this. And do you recognise these kind of 3 stepping stone stages that I've gone through today? And which do you want to learn more from? The left-hand part of this or the right-hand part of this? And thinking about your work and your life, folks. In what ways can we help each other to show up differently and to push through this inflection point at the bottom of this triangle here? I see this bottom of the triangle being the inflection point, the change point, the difference that makes all the difference. And, this is about raising the we part of our game here. Now, I believe that Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, whatever you want to call them, the millennial generation and beyond, they're getting this more quickly than the baby boomers, the oldies in this world. Like myself, I include myself in that, right? So, in summary, and let's just come back to my summary sheet here. In summary, what will you commit to for yourself? What will you commit each other in your team to if you're running with a team, if you're leading a team? What will make you be brave enough to move away from blue pill thinking, folks? Where we can swallow the red pill, towards red pill thinking I'm talking. And to do that more of the time, so that your work and your life can flourish, folks. That's where I'd like for you to think about, because this is a journey. And I believe that this is the new journey in the new normal world that will become our new normal way of working and being, folks, that we have to develop ourselves. So listen, if this has kind of touched touched you in some way, if this has rang a bell for you, if this has kind of struck a chord, and hit a tone of some description, as I've mentioned, there's something here that we need to leverage. And for our businesses to be successful in this rapidly changing world, this is where we need to head, folks. And, for leaders and teams, I've been working with leaders and teams for the last 18 years, as I've said. And, if you need help to get there, please get in contact with me, because this is really hard to do on your own. But, as a team, it's an exciting journey we can go on. So get some help, get someone to facilitate your teamwork, to help you to get to that high performing team piece, to access your true potentiality. Or join a community of like-minded leaders, like I talked about our Inspired CEOs. And I'll put some links at the bottom of there. So if you're a CEO and a leader, please join that. I've been working with organisations for the past 18 years doing exactly this stuff. And it's been a privilege to do that. And I think it's only now that people are really getting this. So I just want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please subscribe to and get notifications for my new channel, Leaders Live. Please support me on live when I'm on LinkedIn. This will be posted to YouTube. You can access it there, and also on Facebook. And it'll also be available now on replay on LinkedIn too. So thank you very much for indulging me this morning. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very much. And I'll see you again sometime this week again. I'll be going live again sometime this week. Thank you very much. Cheers for now. Bye.